Yeah, that's good.
Hitting it nice this morning.
Totally. On the face. The camera.
Feels good.
All right, Victor, what's the first thing you'll do when you get to the range before a round? First club you grab?
Yeah, usually I've been in kind of the fitness trailer or in the locker room, just kind of warming up, stretching out my body.
Not this morning as much, maybe.
Not this morning, but that doesn't quite mean that I'm super loose. It still takes me a couple of swings. Something about like just feeling the weight in the hands and making a swing kind of gets me loose. Yeah,
you can hit a few while we're going here too, so you can.
But yeah, usually I just start off with a 60, and I just kind of hit a couple of chips to start off. Just feel like the technique is in a good spot, and I'm clipping them the way that I want to. Obviously, do that on the chipping green as well.
Yeah.
And as I feel comfortable with that, I'll probably start hitting a couple of longer wedges.
Do you go to the range before you putt or anything like that? You go straight to the range first?
I like putting first.
Okay.
So I get to the course probably, or get to the practice area, let's call it 50 minutes before my tee time.
Yeah.
Putt around for maybe 10 or 15 minutes or so. I'll go and chip for probably another 10 to 15. Hit the range for 20. And hit a couple putts again before I head out to the first tee.
Nice.
That's usually how I do things. Sometimes, you know, they have their practice areas pretty spaced out.
Right.
So it's kind of hard to get to certain
places. Go from one to the other.
Yeah. So you gotta be able to make some adjustments on the fly.
And are you thinking about anything at all when you're hitting these little half wedges, or just contact?
Yeah. One thing that I've kind of struggled with in the past with wedges is that I tend to kind of tilt back a little bit too much and get way too shallow.
Okay.
So on the wedges, I actually want to be steep. I think that's one thing that a lot of people get wrong. They try to pick everything off the ground with the wedges.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, sure, you want to hit a nice flush little divot, but you shouldn't be afraid to hit it down in the ground. So that's kind of, I make sure my head is moving a little bit left in the backswing, and my body is kind of moving forward so I can really get a good contact.
Is that something you've changed over time, or is that a new learning for you, or is that something you've always focused on?
I would say that's somewhat recent, because I've always been a great ball striker, but sometimes the wedges, I put too much of a driver swing into a wedge swing.
Yeah.
So just understanding that, okay, with the driver, I'm trying to hit up on it. With the wedges, I'm trying to hit down on it to create more spin. So just understanding what my body has to do to make that happen.
All right, let's get you hit a couple more here. Get further in your process.
Yeah.
Well, how about breakfast? What have you had for breakfast by this point?
Not
today, but in a hypothetical tournament round day.
Yeah, I mean, they usually just in player dining, they'll have, you know, eggs and bacon. And some breakfast potatoes, or, you know, I'm not really too picky.
You're not obsessive about what goes into your body before a round.
Not really. I'll just eat anything that has, you know, healthy fats, some carbs and protein. Try not to eat too much sugar before I go out there and play, but that's about it.
Yeah.
You need some food.
All right, what have you got now?
So I got an 8-iron right now.
Are you skipping some steps, or is this immediately where you would go?
Yeah, I probably, so I'll mix it up every once in a while. Sometimes I'll hit the wedges and then go to the full pitching wedge or the full 9-iron. And if I start with a pitching wedge, I'll go to an 8-iron, 6-iron, and then a 4-iron. Or if I pull the 9-iron, I'll do the 7-iron, 5-iron, and then the 3-iron.
Your odds and evens days?
Yeah, it's just whatever I feel like. There's no purpose to it.
Sweet. What ball flight are you hitting right now?
I want to hit a little cut.
Yeah. And has that always been your go-to shot shape? Just like a little bit of a pull cut?
When I'm playing my best, yes.
Yeah.
When I'm playing my best golf, it almost feels like I have a wall up against the left side, and I can just try to hit it as much as I can up against the wall, and it always comes off of it. That's
Amazing.
when I play my best.
The further left you hit it, the further right it comes, or it's just not even a concern?
It's not really a concern.
Okay.
And I would say, like, in college, or when I first turned pro, it was almost like the cut was maybe a little too big for my liking.
Mm-hmm.
So it was almost like where I had to feel a slight draw and make it cut 2 yards, which is pretty nice because you know it's never going to go left unless you do something stupid with your hands or hit it way off the toe.
Yeah.
So that's a great spot to be. I would say, like, what's kind of made me struggle a little bit the last couple of years is that sometimes I even out the ball flight a little bit, or sometimes even draw it. And now if I want to hit that cut, I got to work a little bit harder to get that cut. And that's been a little bit frustrating because in my mind, when I'm visualizing stuff, I'm visualizing that, you know, the little bleeder. And if that becomes a little harder to hit, there's some insecurities that come in there.
So would you say you're like, if there's a shot that kind of scares you, it's the left miss, it's like the pull instead of the pull cut?
So that's the thing. It's like, and I recognize this, sometimes if the cut is not there, when I try to cut it, that's obviously a disaster. If it starts left and draws, that's a disaster.
Yeah.
So what I'll end up doing is that, okay, I'll just commit to playing the pull draw, or I just need to start it out to the right and just play draws.
Got it.
You know, that's kind of what I did in Bahamas at the end of last year. Like, I didn't really felt like I hit it all that good, but I knew what was coming. And if you can predict what's happening, you can play, even though it's not ideal.
I feel like that's something that, you know, maybe people at home would assume, oh, these guys are pros. They've got the exact same feels and exact same golf swing every single time out. But really, every time you get to the range and get to the course, does it feel like a little bit different, and then you have to make adjustments because of that?
Yeah, as I said, when you're not playing your best, that's what happens.
Yeah.
But I would say, like, when I first turned pro, like my last couple of years in school, I knew what I had every single day.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the constant struggle of trying to get better, but not lose what you've already had. And I think, you know, I'm a way better player. I hit it way further. I can hit it way higher.
Yeah.
I can work the ball both ways. But if you only have one thing, that's maybe not 100% optimal, but the predictability is very high. That's almost better in some sense.
Right.
So it's like just constantly weighing that is yeah, I mean, that's the tough part about trying to getting better.
Pure.
Yeah, those are nice.
What you've talked about how there is an aspect of your full swing that, and partly what makes you such a good ball striker makes it harder for you to hit pitch shots, hit short shots, hit wedge shots around the green. Explain that to me. What does that look like?
Well, so the math and physics are a little bit different to be able to, if you want to produce a high launching drive that doesn't spin, like that spins optimally, and you get max out of your club head speed, there's a certain, you know, there are certain numbers that you want to hit to be able to produce that. So you want to hit up on the ball, and you want low launch. So that, you know, that generally looks like this. You're a little bit behind the ball and you got the hands forward. Not so much loft. You try to do that in the chipping. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to hit fastballs. And around the greens, especially out on tour when the greens get fast and firm and the rough is thick or you're on a downslope, you need to do the complete opposite. So you need to slow the ball down. So now some of those speed producing moves that make the ball go fast is suddenly a tough thing in a short game.
Yeah.
So
what? It's poor contact. It's the ball coming out low and dead, or what is it?
Well, it all comes down to, you know, what do you do if you want to hit a flop shot or slow the ball down as much as possible? You want to hit an inefficient shot.
Yeah.
So
sure, big swing doesn't go very far.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the physics of that is you hit down on the ball and you open the face, you get as much loft as possible, get the hands low, hit down, and yeah, try to just pop the ball up straight up in the air. And tilting back and leaning the hands forward is not ideal to that. So a lot of times you'll get a medium in between the ball and the face, meaning grass or the ground, and now you lose even more spin. So it's kind of a double whammy. If you got good technique, you hit the ball cleaner, you got more loft, and now you spin it even more. So you get rewarded for the good technique. So it's just kind of understanding what you do to change those moves for the situation that, you know, it calls for.
And without taking away from, you know, being one of the few best ball strikers in the entire planet.
Yeah, exactly. It's that's why it's such an interesting game, because you know, no shot is exactly the same, and you got to understand how you adapt to each situation. So yeah, that's cool. Why it makes you crazy.
I'd never thought about it quite that way, though, of like, you know, obviously most shots you're trying to hit in the most efficient manner possible, but a flop shot's a good example. You're trying to hit it almost as inefficiently as possible in terms of,
but even a basic chip as well.
Yeah,
because if you want to have it, the bump and run is predictable, but if you get to super firm and fast greens, now the ball is rolling too much. So you almost want to have, the more spin you have, the more consistent the contact is, and the more predictable it is, because you can. You know, you know what the ball's going to do when it hits the green.
When were you first a swing geek? When did you start geeking out over golf swings?
I've always been, kind of growing up. I'm just generally a very curious person.
Yeah.
And I think, and I don't really understand why more people don't do it, but I'm in charge of my own business. You know, I'm the CEO of Viktor Hovland, you know, golfing enterprise.
Yes.
And if I'm going to hire people that try to help me in my golf swing, I better understand what they're actually trying to tell me, or I got to understand that if I'm hiring people that don't know what they're talking about, I got to be able to protect myself against that. And,
has that happened?
No, I feel like a lot of the people that I've hired and been around have all helped me. Yeah. They've been good for me. But I think just in general, I think you can't just willfully just agree with everything that's been said out there. You gotta you know, ask some questions and say, hang on, is that right, or that doesn't seem right? And if I'm wrong, well, I want to know how I'm wrong so I can not make that mistake in the future. I think that's just generally a smart thing to do.
Sounds like a logical approach to me. Yeah. All right, what comes up after 8 iron? 6 iron, since today's an even day?
It's an even day, so we'll just wipe the face off on the 8, and we'll go to the 6 iron. So now we're getting into some longer stuff.
How long does the 6 iron fly? We're a little into the wind this morning, but neutral territory.
Normal stock yardages are about, you know, 200 yards, just over 200 yards. Okay. Yeah. Not really trying to hit a 6 iron that goes forever. You just want to make sure it goes the same distances.
And you've picked up some speed over time, right? The last couple of years, you've gotten on quite a bit faster. How much further do you think, say, you fly a 6 iron now compared to college?
Yeah, that's a funny thing. It's like when I was in college, I hit it so low and I had barely any spin on the golf ball.
Really?
So it was kind of perfect for being in Oklahoma, because I could, when it was blowing 25 into the wind and the guys were clubbing up by 2, I just hit the same club and just hit like a knuckler in the wind.
Yeah.
So I don't really hit it that much further with my irons. But I would say now it's, you know, I spin the ball a little bit more. I can hit it a little bit higher. So I hit it further with the longer irons, but the shorter irons, about the same, maybe another 5 yards. But what's kind of been paying off is obviously off the tee and with the 3-woods and stuff. But again, those clubs, if you hit those clubs 5 to 10 yards further, it's nice, but it's all about hitting the right distances. Yeah. And then off the tee, that's where you can kind of send it.
And then how much do you vary your ball flight during, say, a tournament round based on the shot, based on the wind? Do you like to try to hit the same stock shot every time, or are you someone that likes to see different shots based on the situation?
Yeah, I think harnessing one shot and becoming good at that, I think that's the number one thing to do. You know, there are some tricky tee shots out there, especially at, for example, Augusta, or anytime you get a dogleg left and the wind is off the left tee shot, it's tough with a cut.
Yeah.
And that's where your mind will play tricks on you and say, okay, well, now I got to change my swing or do something to hit a draw for that one situation. Where it's like, okay, the cut is working 95% of the time. Let's just hit the cut on this hole and try to make it work, or just try to hit a little lesser cut. Or sometimes if that's not even possible, I'll probably just, you know, hood the face, aim way right. I already aim to the right. I'll aim way right and literally just
over-exaggerate everything, basically.
Yeah, and I can hit a draw if I really have to.
Got it.
But other than that, I'll have like my normal kind of launch a little higher, try to carry it pretty far. If I got to cover a bunker or something, I'll try to send it a little bit up in the air. But if it's especially out here, it's very narrow. And if the fairways get firm, I really like just kind of not necessarily tee down as much, but I'll feel like I'll launch it a little bit lower. Like let's say a stock drive is 11 degrees of launch angle, and then my kind of bullet one will be at 8, just to kind of, and I'll probably lose 25 yards on that carry. But if the fairways are firm, it'll go further.
Out. Yeah. Got it. Yeah, and if you talked about that Hilton Head a little bit, is that right? Is that a place where you can kind of like hit a knuckler
Hilton
out
Head,
there?
Mayakoba, where I won 2 times. That was basically all I hit. I mean, I gripped down on the driver and still hit it like really hard, but just hit like a bullet cut on every single hole. It was fun.
So what makes you the resort king? Why have you played so well in these tropical destinations?
Well, I think you know, there's no secret. My short game hasn't been the best part of my game, and I think that's hurt me on the tougher golf courses. Even though I do get a benefit of the ball striking, but it gets to the point where the greens are so firm, everyone's going to miss screens. I might hit a good drive, a good second shot that lands on the green and rolls just over, and now I'm kind of in the same spot as a lot of other guys, and then my short game hasn't been good enough to keep up with that. Now I feel like I've got some tools, but in the past it's just a perfect fit for my game, because if I hit every tee shot in the fairway and there's some trouble off the tee and it's really soft, I can really get to work with my irons than just landing by the pin, and I'm going to have a good look at it. And I've putted really well at those tournaments. Yeah.
All right, we'll let you hit a few more, get up to speed, and then we'll get to driver. Oh, that's good.
Hitting it nice this morning.
Totally. On the face. The camera.
Feels good.
They're even into the wind.
Yeah, that's the best test.
I guess so, yeah. Or it can be demoralizing warming up right into the wind if you don't have it.
Well, I try not to lie to myself.
I guess that's important, and a lot of people like the comfort of a little bit of dishonesty.
There's a time and place for that.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to get better at home
today. What's the biggest mistake that you see amateur golfers make? You play a lot of pro-ams, you play with a lot of different guys. What do you see people do most often that just makes you cringe?
I mean, I think it's everyone wants to, I mean, I get it. They want to, I guess, prove to themselves and the other guys in the group that they can hit a certain shot when it's maybe not in their probabilities. Yeah. So when you're out on the golf course, you know, just kind of, and this goes to every single level. If you don't feel comfortable with the shot and the penalties are or the consequences are bad for it, you know, maybe not even try to hit it at the golf course. Just hit the shot that you know keep it in play, and then you shoot the best score you can. And then when you're not on the golf course, you could try to work on it.
So players being over aggressive or taking on shots they shouldn't.
Yeah, it's like, oh, well, you know, the cover's 200 yards. A good 3-wood off the deck on a downslope can maybe get it over there, but likely it will not. So you're gonna, you know, you can hit a pretty good shot in the water, and now you got to drop, and you lost 2 shots.
Right.
I get it for the fun of it, but if we're trying to like lower our scores, I think just having a little bit better game plan would help most people.
Yeah. Is that an ego thing? Is that what you're talking about? Lying to yourself?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I do it myself as well. Sometimes you're just, you know, you're not playing your best, and you're middle of the pack, but you're like, okay, we're just, I know this is stupid. We're going to go for this.
Yeah.
I just want to see if I can pull it off. And I think some of that is good, but in the heat of the moment, you sometimes got to realize that, you know, let's try.
It's not happening.
It's probably not happening.
Yeah. All right, let's see. What get you a 4-iron?
4-iron, let's do it.
I can be wiping off your clubs here too.
Oh, good.
Full service operation.
Love it.
Yeah, I mean, do you ever have guys in pro-ams that seem like they're out there determined to beat you?
I probably haven't. I've had it happen once.
Okay.
Where the guy was, persistent that he was out driving me, and I was closer than you on most of the holes out there all day. So I've heard that a couple times, but most people know.
Yeah. I would think it wouldn't take more. You know, I could just see like maybe you bogey number 2 and they start off like par, and start feeling a little chesty out there or something.
Well, tongue in cheek, it's pretty funny. You know, if I make a bogey and you make a birdie, like I want to hear some smack. I mean, that's fine. But if you believe it, that's a different story.
Whew.
Little draw on that one.
Is there any similarity between Oklahoma and Norway?
Not really. Not a big example that I can think about.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it wasn't hard for me to get adjusted either. I mean, it's so quiet here, and people are really nice, and all that I really came here to do is play golf. And guys on the team, they had the same vision. The coaches, you know, that's what they show up to work to do. And I mean, it was easier for me to come here and just get integrated, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty incredible place. This is my first day at Karsten Creek, but you know, the fact you guys have basically a dedicated golf course, clubhouse, private range, etc. Like it's all laid out pretty professionally for you.
It's pretty special.
I'm guessing you didn't have that growing up.
No. The courses weren't as great, and had to drive or take the bus to the golf course. And obviously the weather, not that weather is amazing around here either, but at least you can play year round. Right. Which I couldn't do at home. So it was a cool experience.
All right, send a couple more 4-irons here, and then we'll tee up driver and see why you're the best. How far is 4-iron gonna fly?
This one's going about 225. Kind of depends on the conditions. In the summer, sometimes when it gets hot, I feel like the 4-iron just goes forever sometimes. Yeah. Especially you get that kind of high one going. But it goes about like week in, week out, it goes about 225. Okay.
And it sounds like you're pretty happy with that distance. You're not trying to squeeze extra yardage out of these long irons.
No, because that's what I've noticed. Yeah, you hit it nice, but if it lands on the green and rolls over, it doesn't do you that much good. So I don't mind hitting it 5 yards further, but have that added spin. Yeah. To where I can stop it on the greens. Cool.
All right.
Get some tees up.
Oh, yeah. You still have cowboy tees? What's on your tees?
No, I got pings on these.
Oh, all right.
It's a good mix of kind of all the tournaments we play.
I was just watching that video you did with Rory where you refused to tee up the ball with his Rory tee or Roar's tee or whatever it says. But But you don't have your own Vic tees, I guess.
No, that's where I draw the line.
You'll get there. So basically, I would love for you to explain 2 things to me. And the first is just to walk me through how you hit driver, what you think about, and what makes you such an effective driver, because you really are one of the best all-around drivers of the golf ball in the world.
Yeah, I think when I first got to school, I've always hit it very, very straight. But when I first got to school, I kind of had to fight a bigger slice. So
why do you hit it straight, first of all? I mean, I know you have a pretty good understanding of your golf swing. Like, what are the physics of that?
I would say for me, I have they call it a low rate of closure. So my face does not go super open to super closed very quick. It kind of stays square throughout the golf swing. And that's, because of my bowed left wrist, and I have a very shut club face.
Yeah, so go to the top of your swing. What does that look like?
Yeah, so top of my swing, obviously it's going to look a little different compared to
when you're doing it in real time.
Moment. Yeah, but so my left wrist will be a little flexed like here. Club face is pointing kind of straight up in the air.
Right.
And another thing is my arms aren't very deep. I kind of have I have high arms in the backswing.
Right.
So what that does is I have to basically, because before in college it was even higher, and then the first move would be out. So I would have 0 depth, and obviously it's going to go left, and I would cut it.
Got it. And then you lose distance and control, or?
Yeah, I would say so. It's not optimal, but at least I got to work with one ball flight. So I kind of knew that, okay, on some holes, I'm just going to aim it in the left trees, because if I just hit my normal shot, that's going to be in the fairway.
Yeah.
So I think playing like that, it kind of makes it a little bit easier for you, but it was a little too much.
Yeah. All right. So you have a low rate of closure though. So that's helping your face kind of stay stable.
Yeah.
All right. What else makes you so good?
I would say, with a driver, I don't have a lot of lateral movement either. Which, a lot of the great players have lateral movement, which it's not necessarily a bad thing, but too much, and if you don't get the proper tilts, you're going to hit down on the ball. So the best players like Greg Norman, Jack Nicklaus, Tiger, they had a lot of lateral movement, but they also pulled up really hard. And I have a lot of that as well, where, if you watch my left arm and my left shoulder, it will pull up. And that's how you get kind of the club up out of the ground and you hit up on the ball.
So what's the alternative for you of lateral movement?
Well, it's, I'm still moving forward, but I can't move too far forward because my arms, as I said, I don't have a lot of depth.
Yep.
So I kind of pivot more around my right foot. Okay. Which is still fine because I get a lot of side bend. You see my left shoulder kind of going really up in the air, and that's kind of how I make it work, and I keep the face very square.
Got it.
And when I hit up on the ball, that's going to move the path a little bit more left. So that's why, I hit that nice little cut. And for me, it's one-dimensional, but I know where the ball's going to go.
All right, show us a perfect one.
Yep. No, I think that was a bad ball. But it cut.
A little, it definitely cut. A little too much cut for you?
That was a little much.
All right, we'll blame it on the range ball for sure.
What a tour player. Just blames everything else but himself.
Serious question. Do you ever find that it's healthy to blame external factors? Oh, it's a stupid golf course. And you just move on more easily because of that?
Yeah, I think there's a good balance, because I think it's good to protect your ego sometimes. But in the grand scheme of things, if you protect it too much, it's hard to grow or improve.
You're lying to yourself again, then, which you don't want.
Yeah, but I think I sometimes have been too much in that direction, where I break it down in real time when I'm out there on the course, instead of, okay, let's just focus on playing.
Right.
and then after the round, you can be introspective. And I think some of the best players of all time, they're sometimes a little delusional in that way, where it's never their fault. They hit a perfect shot to kind of, keep the confidence levels up.
What is your swing thought right now on driver? Like, some of this is obviously happening naturally now, and it's just muscle memory. What are you thinking about right now?
Yeah, so speaking of that, pulling up part, that is kind of something that I need to work on a little bit right now, because I've been, in the short game, been focusing a lot on moving forward and the wedges to get that angle of attack down, whereas with the driver, I want to kind of stay back a little bit and still get my body forward, but kind of, pivot a little bit more on the right foot and kind of get that left shoulder up in the air. So that's kind of all that I'm trying to think of right now. Feel like I'm not getting too far forward in transition. Kind of staying back and letting the hips extend. That was money.
That's the one right there.
Yeah.
How far is that going to fly? Ignoring the fact that we're into the wind.
Yeah, normally that's going to fly about 300, I would say. Yeah.
And it's got some chase to it too.
Yeah, that one's pretty optimal as well. So yeah, if I wanted to hit a little higher, it would probably give me another 5 yards. That little lower probably loses 15 yards, but just all depends on what hole.
Will you mess with your driver settings based on the venue, or say, when we're going to the Open or anything like that?
No, not really. I think that for the most part just gives you more problems. Going back to the discussion there, it's like you could potentially make the driver more optimal for that week, but if the ball is doing some weird stuff, 1 out of 10 balls, that can give you some scar tissue as well. So it's like, yes, this driver might not be optimal if it's super wet and rainy out there, but at least I know kind of what it's going to do.
Right.
So
that makes sense. Yeah. All right. Now, if you're giving a lesson to the average amateur, what can they learn from your driver swing, from how you hit driver? Is there anything that people can take away that they can try to emulate?
Yeah. I mean, it's so hard to give like one generic advice to a lot of people. But I mean, the hardest thing for people, especially like if you just sit in front of a desk all day and you try to hit bombs, it's, because most guys just kind of come over the top. I would probably encourage, like, if you struggle with a slice, a good feeling for most people is actually, to kind of move forward with a pelvis so they can kind of allow some side bend in there.
All right, this is good. So you're fixing the slice right now. This is probably what you see most of your amateur partners are hitting a slice, right? All right, so walk me through that. Your pelvis is...
Yeah, if your pelvis is moving, and there's a lot of people that like to, or they see a lot of pros do it, but they only do one part of it and they can't do the rest. But they exaggerate this pelvis movement, kind of getting it away from the body.
Yep.
Because now you're rotated, but if you don't have any side bend in there, your path is just going to go straight to the left. So getting the pelvis...
the side bend helps you hit it to the right?
Yes. So if I were to stand here...
Or helps you start it to the right, I should say, instead of slicing it.
It evens out the path a little bit. If I just sit here and I do this, this is going to come from the inside and kind of out to the right. But if the pelvis is moving this way, it's kind of hard to side bend enough, and that's why most people can't really hit draws.
Interesting.
You got to be somewhat flexible to twist and turn, like someone like Joaquin Niemann, for example. And I have a lot of side bend like that. I think Sam Bennett was another guy. I looked at his impact. He's very much like that. And it's just hard for most people to make that work.
Do you study a lot of other players' swings, and are there guys that you kind of borrow from, or you're curious about how it works the way they do it?
Not intentionally, but if it pops up, I'll like, oh, that's cool. That's, I wonder why he does that.
Yeah.
And then try to figure it out. But it's not some like, okay, now we're going to go down the list of people and try to understand it, because it doesn't pertain to me that much. Right. It's just kind of interesting to see.
What was your swing originally modeled after? Do you know? Just watching guys around you, or watching guys on TV, or it just kind of happened?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like I've always been a fan of DJ swing, so I have a lot of similar things to
the both
DJ.
Left wrists and
a lot of, you know, he hits cuts, gets a lot of pull up, very rotary, but it's one of those, like, you try to model yourself to different people and you don't understand fully what they're doing, and maybe you can't do the same things as he does. You know, it's kind of just a pointless journey to embark on. I think you just got to understand what you have and try to fix the things that you can fix to make you better. And I think, especially being indoors hitting balls all day, you can definitely go down the rabbit holes of trying to fix everything. But at the end of the day, you got to have something that you can predict day in, day out.
All right, well, let's talk of slices. I feel like we better have you just rip one and get some positive thoughts instead of some mistake talk.
Yeah. See if we can replicate that last shot. That's pretty nice. Yeah, that's that little lower one, but that's awesome.